Welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about what to do when your weight plateaus. It is inevitable, it's going to happen, and having a plan and expectation for it is so important. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. Mind elevation.
This one
Yeah.
or mind elevations.
Yes. I feel like we've been on this theme for the past couple of episodes. So like we talked about like what to do, like just to be fucking honest and things you could do. However, it all kind of plays off of itself, right? So it's an extension of what we already been talking about. So good. Want to give a lot of love and a lot of healing and thoughts to those who have been in this Hurricane Helene.
I know.
Did you see Asheville is like wiped out?
That's why I was
which
just watching the news, and it was like they showed a Wendy's, but the Wendy's was like covered to the top of the building with water.
Yeah, it's insane. Our good friend Tammy lives in North Carolina, and she's been without power for 3 days. And she like lives up on a mountain, and like they'd have to get a significant amount of rain for it to flood like that because it all goes downstream, you know. But you know, she used to live in a different area, and she said it was pretty bad there. It's insane. And you know, we have a lot of clients. We have I think like 4 clients in North Carolina. We have a handful of clients in Florida. Coach Laura lives in Florida. And so we're just sending y'all a lot of love as we live in Phoenix where we get haboobs.
I was thinking about this on my drive back home from work today of like, wow, like how fortunate is it that we don't have to deal with like hurricanes or tornadoes? What's another one that?
Earthquakes.
Earthquakes. Yep. There we go. There we go. Volcanoes.
I lived in LA.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We, however, not to compare it because there is no comparison, but it was 100 and fucking over 110 on Saturday.
Yeah.
Like what in the actual fuck? Why is it so hot? I know why, but we won't get into that today.
Well, it's funny because Michael had a friend that stopped by this weekend. He bought a truck in California, and so he was driving back to Texas. And so I was like, oh, well, because he hadn't been to California before. And he's like, oh, it was so nice. And I was like, I didn't realize you hadn't been there before. He's like, yeah, then I got here and I stepped out of my truck and it's like opening up an oven. And I was like, yeah, that's about accurate.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Like stick your face in an oven. That's what Arizona feels like.
Yeah. And just so you get, and just for reference, we have the rest of this week. So today, the high is 102.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'm sorry, 104 is the high. And then it goes to 107 tomorrow, 103, 104, 104, 102, 102, 102, 100 next week. Wednesday will be 98. Fuck.
I know. See, I don't really prepare myself for the weather to cool off until like November anyway. So I wasn't really upset about it.
It's hit or miss. I remember being in college and wearing my little bumblebee Halloween costume that was like no clothes during like Halloween, and it was freezing.
Oh.
But I did it. It's like those memes you see about girls who go to schools that where it's like snowing and they're out in their like little black dress and heels. I'm like, good for you.
That would be me. That would have been me. We did that.
Really?
Oh yeah. It would snow and we would wear like, because that was when like the tight skirts were in. And so then we'd have our heels and you wouldn't bring a jacket because if you brought the jacket, you were going to lose the jacket. So it was like, get inside, hopefully. And then once you're inside, you're fine.
So I have a question for you. It kind of stems off this, like the past. So my niece and my nephew. So I have my sister-in-law has 2 boys, oldest and youngest, and then the middle is a girl. Okay. And this week was homecoming, and the girl, Mara, and the boy, Adam, the youngest, went to homecoming. But the oldest is a senior, has never been to homecoming. And I asked Mark, I'm like, did you ever go to homecoming? He's like, no, I went to prom at another school. I'm like, so you never went to like your school dances? He's like, no. And I'm like, oh my God, you're so weird. Did you go to homecoming?
Yes, I thrived. That was when like grinding. Like, that was
Grind it up. Yeah, that's true.
That was funny because we somehow. So I was in Stugo for a couple of years, so student government too. Shocking that we were in Stugo. So one year, our buddy, he like somehow was a DJ too. I don't know. He was in high school, so we ended up paying him to DJ the homecoming. So then, of course, it was like all of our songs that we liked too.
Yes.
And so yeah, I definitely went to homecoming, and I only went to 2 proms. I went sophomore year and junior year because senior year, by that time I had technically graduated. So I wasn't there the last semester.
So while you were being smart, I went to 5 proms.
5?
I was a hot commodity. I'm a great date. I'm a great date. I was homecoming royalty.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Freshman year, before they really got to know me. And then they were like, this bitch. I was always nominated, but my boyfriend always won. I didn't win. He always won. He won prom prince, prom king, homecoming king. I'm like, oh my God. But he was older than me. So, that's why I didn't get any love. They're like, oh, she's taking the prom king. And she's, at that time a sophomore. Whatevs. But you got to get involved. And they do these flower bouquets now.
The mooms or whatever. Remember the mums?
No, they just have little bouquets. And I'm like, what is this? What happened to corsages? I'd rather just have it on my arm.
I hated the corsage.
Really?
I did not like
flowers.
No.
Yeah. I want to say my favorite prom was probably, definitely my sophomore year when I went with my boyfriend, who was like the love of my life, who was prom king. No, he was prom prince that year. And then I had a great time at Moon Valley's prom. That's one I went to with my friend Cody. I think those are probably my favorite too. Yeah. My prom date my senior year, I was in a relationship with a guy who went to a different school, and he didn't want to come. But also my freshman year, this guy had a crush on me, and he made it very well known. So I said, hey, my freshman year, because, I opened my big fat mouth. And I was like, if we don't have prom dates, or we're going to prom our senior year together. And so he was also in a relationship, get this, with my ex-boyfriend that was prom king's sister. And they didn't go together. He went with me.
Oh my gosh. Talk about high school drama.
Oh yeah, it was a big fucking deal. And like, well, I don't know what to tell you. We both kept our word. Like,
promise is a promise in high school, you know?
God.
You don't break that kind of shit. Bond forever.
Exactly. So that was the conversation this weekend. I was like, so then my friend Elena was like, you should throw him a homecoming party because he's never been to homecoming before.
You should throw him a home. Is his birthday coming up? No.
It's in March. I mean, yes.
Well, we'll prepare. We'll prepare ahead of time.
Yeah. So the other conversation, you guys, that we had on our group coaching call was like, what is the catastrophe that you live in your mind? And everyone's was so sweet. They're like, my partner's going to die. And I'm like, I'm going to get a car accident, or I'm going to get stuck in a tornado. Mine was totally I do go through that when he, like I said, when he's out of town and not with me. But honestly, we spend so much time together that unless it's something sudden that we can't, track, I guess, we're probably going to be together. So
yeah, that's what when Laura was talking about, I was like, or no, you that said that unless we all die together. And I was like, oh, The Notebook. I just my dream movie, my dream life.
We say that, because the dogs, Bricky's not doing so hot. And
oh my gosh, I gotta tell you,
jump off the cliff now.
Yeah, so when you asked that question, I was just like, ugh. And that's because, Friday, my mom sent me a video of their dog Thursday, and I love their dog. She just is so cute. Now she has pancreatitis. So sometimes when she gets inflamed, she doesn't feel good. So she throws up and poops. That's why we don't watch her. Cause for some reason, every time we watch her, she throws up and poops. And so we're like, okay, we're not doing that. So she can only have certain food. Okay, fine. So then she was my mom sent me a video of her this past week, and I was like, that's weird. And thankfully my cousins lover, I'm elevating her to lover after this weekend,
Mm.
is a veterinarian. And so I was like,
Mhm.
we need to text Dr. Emily. And so my mom sent the text, and then she, I guess, somehow collected the dog's pee. I don't know. Well, it turns out the dog ended up getting like diabetes really bad too.
Oh
And so
no.
I know. So then I guess when you have pancreatitis plus diabetes, like it's really hard to treat in animals, like
Mm.
because you can treat the insulin, but then you still have the pancreas issue. And you
Right.
can take the do the pancreas, but not the, and so it was like, oh no. So then on Friday, my mom texted me like they're gonna put Lulu to sleep. And I was like, sleep like as in like we're gonna like, I'm gonna cry. Like sleep
Mm.
as in like she just needs a siesta, or like sleep because she needs to go. And she's like, sleep because she needs to go. I was like, oh my God.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
I know. So I go over there, like, so Michael had his friend over, and so there he's sleeping on the couch because we sleep in separate rooms, everybody, because Michael snores so bad. Um, so
He
if you do
won't
that,
use his shit.
yeah, and he
His
won't use this shit. So if
sleep
you do that,
apnea
there is
stuff.
no shame in it. And I
Mm.
sleep is so important to me that I rather,
Kicked his ass out.
yeah, I rather sleep in my own room than try and deal with it.
Yeah.
So I was like just hanging out in my room because I couldn't be like in the living room or anything. And so my mom
Mhm.
texted me because she was like, I think we're gonna wait through the weekend and see how she does. And then she texted me Saturday, like, I think we're just gonna kind of call it good. And I was like,
Mhm.
fuck. So I went over there Saturday morning, and it was just so sad because you could tell she just didn't feel good. And
Yeah.
so I was like, oh my gosh. And so they ended up, I guess, like putting her down essentially.
Mm,
I know. And so like Saturday, I was a mess, like
I'm sure.
just like bawling. And I'm like, it wasn't even my dog. And then I was like thinking, like, so then I was starting to spiral of like, if I can't handle the dog, like what's going to happen like when my parents die? And what if
Oh
Michael
no.
dies? I know. So I'm like laying in bed, like one
Just
in yeah,
catastrophizing.
yeah, yeah, of course. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God. And so then like every
Yeah.
time I look at Michael, I'm like, poor Lulu. And he's like, "Whoa, okay. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it was a
Oh,
bad
yeah.
weekend for the Casillos. Like,
Well, it was a bad weekend for, yes,
Brookie.
we had to go through a list of quality of life for her this
Oh,
weekend. Yeah.
see?
Yep.
And that's what I
I
thought of you too. I
text.
was like, God damn, like, oh, like, how do you like it's
Yeah.
so
It's
heartbreaking.
weird though. Like I know I'll be sad when it happens, but you get into this place where you're like, am I being selfish or does she need to
That's
go?
yeah, that's
You
what my mom
know?
and I were talking because she's like, I thought I had like a couple more years with her.
Mhm.
And she's like, but like, so, because she's like, I was really hoping we'd get through the week, but then like, I'm looking at her and like, what are we really doing? You know, like she's drinking water, like it's
Ugh.
nobody's business, not eating. And then she's kind of just like doing weird behaviors and stuff. And she's like, so I'm going to
Mhm.
wait 3 days just
Right.
so I can have more time. But then like,
She's suffering.
yeah. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
bad. I'll send you a video. I had
okay.
to send it to Adrienne. And I was like, what do I do here? Because Mark was still out of town.
Oh no.
It's like, yeah, she just her legs, man. But
Mhm.
anyways, let's talk about something a little bit. We talked about
Happier.
natural disasters, family disasters. Welcome to the Mindset of Matter. It is National Podcast Day, so
Woo!
congratulations. Did
Yeah,
you
but
know
that
that
was nice.
90?
We got that 5,000.
Yeah, we got 5,000 plays. Thank you
Thank
guys. We love you
you.
so much. We got a compliment today from one of our clarity calls. She's like, I absolutely love your podcast. I'm like, thank
Yay.
you.
Yeah.
And we also, we're looking at a podcast studio for us, kind of upgrading. So hopefully you guys see that in the near future. And he said, wow, 90% of podcasts don't get past the first 21 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So we are the best.
Yes.
So thank you all. Thanks for allowing us to do this.
Yeah. Well, we're
Yeah.
good at talking.
So yes. So I am doing new social media. I have a team that's helping me with it. And
Mhm.
I have something that maybe our listeners cannot actually relate to. So I apologize. But it made me like have all these desserts in my house and like to get like in the video, right? So I'd have
Yeah.
these desserts in the video. And I was like, I have chocolate chips. I have peanut butter chocolate chips. I'm like, does that count? you know? So we went to the Mexican bakery by my house. A place, okay. If you live in Phoenix, it's on 12th Street in Dunlap. It's in the little plaza
La
where
Prisma?
no, that's in Glendale. It is called, I took a video. It is called San Sebastian
Pandalaria or something like that.
Yes. Wow.
Pandaria.
Yeah, Pandaria.
Bread and pastelerias, like pastries.
Yeah, so they have pastries, they have cakes, they have all this stuff. So we went in and got what we needed to get. I think I got like 7 to 9 items, and it was $10.
That's nice.
$10. I'm like, how does this place stay open? Yeah, I know. It's amazing. I have this little nook near my neighborhood where we have like a Boar's Head Meat Deli in the gas station, and it's like $4 to $5 per sandwich. Like, I'm just like, do I live in New York? Because that's like New York status where, while yes, living in New York is more expensive, but you can go to a little, what do they call them?
Oh, bodega.
Bodega. Thank you. I knew that. And shit's so cheap. I love it.
I know.
So anyway,
that is one.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of good things about New York. I shouldn't say that.
Yes.
About New York.
Well, and our friends were saying, they're like, yeah, it's expensive tax-wise, but my kids can go to specific like theater and dance schools and like get classes for close to nothing. They have other like incentives that most people don't. They get free access to the museums and all of that. So that's pretty cool. I mean, obviously, it's still expensive. Still, I can imagine paying, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 a month in rent.
So much.
Crazy. So, anyhow.
Oh well.
What else?
We put the stroller together.
Yay!
Actually, I supervised and Michael did it, so that was good. That's about it. Because Friday.
Are you on like weekly doctor's appointments now?
Not yet. I go.
How did the birth plan go?
It went very good. He was very happy about it. He said, because, and for my Mindset of Mommy's clients, they have a copy of it too, but they know that. That way, because I did because you want a birth plan apparently, but yeah, he was like, oh, I don't do that.
I don't know.
Cool. And so I have no notes on mine because he said it all sounds good and that I'm in control and he just wants to be there to support whatever I envision. And I said,
I love that.
Yeah, he's a very good doctor. So, because he's very like, nope, I don't do that. I don't do this. Because even I was talking about like an episiotomy, which is where, do you know what that is?
Nope.
So as the baby's coming out, sometimes they cut your vagina to make it your hole bigger. And you don't want that done, ladies. And there are ways to like stretch your vagina as you are giving birth that like are not a cut. And so he's like, yeah, I don't do those. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, because they love to do those in other birth places.
Yeah. I went darker with my hair.
Did you?
Yeah.
I thought you got it cut or something.
No, she like darkened it. You'll see it in person. It's much darker. And then it just has these like caramel stripes.
Are you still liking the, what's it called? Extensions?
Yeah, I got new hair too. Got new extensions. Yeah, because after like, I had those since January. So
really, you
start seeing them. They start like being a little bit not manageable, like unmanageable and frizzy, and you're like, okay, time for new hair. Shout out to Bitch and Blonde Rachel at Firefly Salon in Phoenix.
Firefly Bitch and Blonde.
Yep, she's the best. We love her.
How long are you doing your extensions? Forever?
We'll see.
Yeah.
I like a little bit of length. My hair doesn't grow after like my shoulders. I think so. It's just dry. And I still do all of the things and try everything. And it's still dry. I love girls with like long, natural curly hair. I think it's so beautiful. And they like toss it over to the side and it's just like, la. And I don't have that.
I know, me either. I'm just like,
So.
oh, you girls.
Everyone wants.
Wispy. That's what it's wispy. They have wispy hair.
Yes. I think of one of the girls
a good job.
She does. We love her. You should go see her. She's offering 50% off extensions and install. So these are flexible ones too. So they're really, really thin. Like the ones I usually get are about an inch, the weft. This one is maybe a centimeter or 2.
Benefit of having the flexible ones.
Put your hair up on top of your head. Don't see the track.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yep, I'm 41. And yes, I love extensions. I want to look like I'm a Mormon wife.
Oh, you know what I watched this weekend? I watched Nobody Wants This. It's with Kristen Bell and Adam. I don't know. He was from something, right? It was very cute. Nobody Wants This because he's a rabbi and she has a podcast too with her sister and
nice
sex and stuff. And I was like, oh,
perfect.
So it was actually really cute. It's a good weekend watch. I would recommend. Adam Brody, that's his name.
Oh yeah, yeah. We watched a bunch of documentaries.
Did you? Anything good?
Yes, but I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
Yeah,
I watched another episode of Lucy Can't Get Off Steven's Dick, which is the other show. So ridiculous.
We find these shows.
I don't know, because I start watching a show, and if I can't get into it, then I turn it off. But if I'm into it, then I'm like, oh fuck, all right.
Yeah, we saw Friends this weekend, and they told us to watch Will and Harper, which is the show with Will Ferrell.
Yeah,
I couldn't get into it.
Really? Why? It's on my to-do.
I don't know. It was just kind of slow in the beginning. Yeah, and also, and you guys listeners may understand what I'm saying here. Like, I don't like watching people in uncomfortable situations.
Oh, okay.
Like I'll watch a murder show like after the fact. Obviously, I'm not going to watch someone get murdered. So that would be weird. Did you ever watch Faces of Death?
No.
As a kid? Okay. So these were like VHSs of literally like bad things. I don't know how I even was allowed to watch that. But you had to rent it from the store, rental store. Also, Mark's parents owned a video store called Videoland.
Did they?
Yes. I talked to Justin Andrews about Faces of Death from Mind Pump. And he was like, I was like, why were we allowed to watch that? Because we're the same age. He's like, I don't know. I go, how did you get it? And he's like, I think his siblings, friends, or whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, I will never look at a monkey head again. And he's like, oh my God. Yeah, it's bad. So anyway,
it shows scenes of gruesome deaths from around the world, both real and reenacted.
Why I was like,
fuck would you watch this?
I was like 11. Like, no, you don't think about it. No. Like you don't think about like the finality of it.
Well, you better. So the thing is, like for your scary movies and stuff, and like even Michael's like, how have you never seen this? Because like I saw Fight Club for the first time this year. So that's putting into context. It's like because I didn't have older siblings in my house. So I didn't like have that like context. And then also my parents would be like, no. And then also my parents don't watch like, they're like, no, that's stupid. And I'm like, okay. So then I wouldn't watch a bunch of shit.
All right, let's get into it. Okay. Let's talk about Plateaus.
Plateaus.
Toes.
Not to be confused with flat toes.
Like it. So a plateau in this regard, we're talking about weight loss, is a period during weight loss where a person stops losing weight despite continuing their diet and exercise routine. And it is going to happen.
Yes.
I'm not going to say it's common. It will happen.
It does happen.
Yes. Now, for me, especially as I get older, it seems to be when I start the process, like it's very slow in regards to weight loss for like 3 weeks. Then it kind of starts to go and your body's like, okay, we're here. But for a lot of clients, they will definitely see this as it's not, especially if you have a belief about yourself, like this isn't going to work for you. You're only going to gain the weight back. You are, what else?
That you aren't doing it correctly, which can be true, can be not.
You're not perfect.
So
they already have that belief. Now this plateau, which is going to happen in the process, only exacerbates that belief, and then they want to give up. Luckily, our clients don't do that because we don't let them.
Yes.
But so let's first talk about why they happen. Why do plateaus happen?
Mm-hmm. So your body's adjusting to a new caloric intake. So what that means is when we're in a deficit, because plateau's happening in a weight loss phase, right? So we have less calories in to elicit fat loss, hopefully. Now your body has to say, okay, I'm only getting this much energy because calorie is a unit of energy. And if it's only getting that much energy, your body has to adjust its energy available too. So it's going to conserve itself. So, but I do want to say too, if you're thinking you plateaued in the beginning, then either we probably haven't given it enough time.
Correct.
And so that's something we need to, it's not like you go, okay, so for example, say I have 2000 calories as my maintenance and I go into a 1500 calorie deficit. It's not like within 3 days I'm going to plateau typically, right?
No.
This is like after like maybe 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 24 weeks, 2 years, FYI, for some of you that have been in a weight loss phase for years. I know.
That's crazy.
So that's what we're talking about. The body's going to change its energy available, or yeah, I would say energy available because your energy input has changed.
Correct. Well, and because of that, your metabolism ultimately is slowing down. That's
Yes.
what's happening to conserve that energy. And so metabolism is our system in our body that utilizes energy and uses it for, or takes food and turns it into energy. And if that's a bit slower, then obviously that's going to cause us to not utilize, the food for that conversion as quickly as we normally do. And so the other thing though, too, is you could also be, this is for everyone, but for newbies, right? And what we mean by newbies is for some people in our program, we start them weightlifting for the first time. And there's definitely newbie gains, meaning like they actually see themselves increasing muscle mass in a deficit, which you and I could never do. Our body would freak the fuck out and be like, what are you doing? I'm not gaining anything. But for newbies, that often happens. So now we have this increase of lean body mass and we're trying to get rid of the fat mass. And so if we increase lean body mass by 2 pounds and we lose 2 pounds, guess what? We are the same weight. We lose 2 pounds of fat, gain 2 pounds of muscle. Now, that's not, people always say that, well, maybe, especially in our group, well, maybe you're gaining muscle. And I'm like, you're probably not.
Well, this is why I also say, so say we are in this muscle gain is offsetting the fat loss. And so the weight staying the same. This is where it's important to do more than just the scale as your measure of progress. And we've talked about that ad nauseum. We will continue to as well.
Yes.
This is another one where plateaus happen because we slowly start to return to these old habits. Right. So weekend comes and I had the drinks and it's okay. But we didn't realize because we had the drinks in the weekend that now I was in a maintenance phase. And then so we're not either one recognizing, okay, it was just a weekend. I need to keep going with my plan. Or two, I start to get a little bit more lackadaisical. So just not having kind of that self-check that we have to do. You're starting to have the extra bites, licks, and tastes, or the BLTs, as Christina likes to say. And that could be because you are feeling hungrier, but you're just not recognizing it. But for example, like if you're having just a handful of nuts is easily like 300 to 400 calories. So just keep that in mind. Not tracking accurately. So if I have the handful of nuts, I don't want to admit it. So I'm not putting it in. And then it just disappears like I never actually had it, even though we did. Or like we start to get lackadaisical with tracking. So and again, this doesn't have to be just calories, but logging your food, writing it down, reflecting on the week or taking pictures, or we're starting to take too many breaks. So again, if I had this weekend, I overate. Okay. And then maybe Wednesday we go to happy hour. Okay. There's another break. Then the weekend happens again. Okay. Another break. So then you're not actually in a deficit too.
Yeah. I think in this, people tend to also believe, okay, well, I should be at a certain point when it comes to tracking. So they'll try to track after the fact now if because they do have some practice with doing that, right? Of tracking ahead, looking at their portions. But sometimes people just kind of make the adjustment too soon and they will try to track after the fact. They'll try to track at the end of the day, whatever that looks like, and then they forget things. And so it's definitely a time where we see people kind of, like you said, ease back into behaviors. And by being able to understand those behaviors, you're going to be better able to kind of U-turn back. I talked to a client about the U-turn recently. If you guys have heard on previous episodes, we have like the old road you drove down and the new road we're creating, and they're just chilling on their new road, losing weight, feeling great, eating foods they love, plus nourishing their bodies, moving in a way that serves their bodies. But shit hits the fan and we just and like U-turn to the old road. And because she was able to recognize she was on that old road, she, in this particular case, was her son's birthday. They went to Outback, and her son wanted the blooming onion. And for this particular client, she had grew up with food scarcity, excuse me. So all this food was left. So that food scarcity kind of crept back up. Yeah. And, she was able to recognize it. She reached out to me, and an interesting thing that came out of it, I don't remember if I said this on the podcast last time, but she goes, I just feel like a failure. And I go, it's not failure. It's familiar. I like the catchy fucking phrases, baby. Not failure, it's familiar. So anyhow, the other thing though too is like, if you're not eating enough, you're not going to have the energy. And sometimes you'll stop moving as much, especially if you're doing way too much workouts. But even if you're still doing, with us, we always adjust our workouts with wherever the client is, whether it's fat loss phase, maintenance, or building phase. But sometimes with life and this decrease in calories, you're going to have less energy, which is going to cause your total daily energy burned to come down. Now, just note, you don't have to move you don't have to have an exercise program to lose weight. Correct. But that's for people who also include it, which we do, especially because we're trying to maintain that lean body mass. But, I say, especially those people who do too much, right? If you're feeling really fatigued and you are not wanting to do your workout, that's probably a sign that you got to pull back some. And when you pull back, or maybe have a deload week, that can also be helpful in regards to plateaus. And so that's kind of the physical, the behavioral, and the emotional side to plateaus. As we talked about already, they can activate a lot of your self-defeating beliefs. But weight loss is not linear. It is not linear. It is ups, downs, peaks, and valleys. It should look like a stair stepper. And we have our clients weigh themselves daily so we can take an average, but also we get to learn those ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of their weight. And if I did have a client who was in a plateau, and I said, okay, it was about, I want to say 2 weeks or so, and she was doing all the things right. Well, at least, she was doing everything at least 90% of the time, right? So we put her on what we'll talk about here. We put her in a diet break. And I'm not even shitting you, Amanda. Like, I have her eating 2,000 calories. Okay. She lost a pound every day last week.
Every day?
Every day. Now, her weight's kind of stabilized. Yeah. She's like, what is going on? I'm like, I have no idea. She's eating 2,000 calories a day, and her weight's just going, after this diet break, boom, 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 boom. So it's probably like where, there's probably like inflammation or stress or whatever it was. She was able to release that. It's pretty fucking crazy. And I was like, okay, let's just look at that. That's not normal. And I don't know what's happening unless you're starving yourself and you're not telling me. She's like, I'm definitely not. I'm like, great. Okay. So let's just remember that. Right.
I think that's a good thing that you shared though, because I would say a lot of times when clients are in this like plateau phase, right, they're feeling so frustrated and scared that the couple things that they probably don't want to do are the things they probably should do. And we'll talk about that when we get into like the should do. But for example, for this client, she probably didn't want to go and eat 2,000 calories out of maintenance for a week because it's like, well, if I do that, one, am I a failure? Because that often comes up.
2,000 is her deficit.
2,000 is her deficit. That's even, okay, great. Okay. We love that even more. Good for her. So, okay, even going, we'll say for this gal, bumping up calories. So not even going to maintenance, but just kind of giving yourself a little bit more reprieve from the deficit. Okay, that's really scary to do. And then also if we're saying like maybe we just need a workout break, so a deload week, that's really scary to do.
Yeah.
And so it's usually for the plateau at this point, the things that you don't want to do that are the most challenging are probably what you need to do most too.
Yeah.
So
Let's talk about what people try to do.
yeah, what they actually do. Yes.
So, as we just talked about, they will actually try to increase their activity.
Yep.
Now, I always keep in my back pocket, because we're so conservative with exercise, maybe an increase in steps.
Yeah.
Or if we have room to add one more, and it makes sense for the client, we can add another additional workout if we want to. But people will, go crazy here and increase all the things, the length of the workout, the frequency of the workout, the intensity of the workout. And all they're doing is making the stuff we just talked about, the energy conservation, changes in the metabolism. It's only making that worse,
Yep. They ramp it up. But then in addition to that, contrary to increasing calories, they even restrict even more. So for example, this client that we are talking about, 2000 is her deficit. She probably could go down to, normally what people would think is, I'll just go to 1500, because I keep seeing that number. 1500 or 1200 is usually the numbers that people pull from the air. And I'm not sure why. So then they become even more, so even more strict and more obsessed with hitting that number. Whether they are or not is not what I'm talking about, but their goal in their mind is to restrict even more. Like, obviously I'm not restricting enough. And it's like, I don't know, like a 500 calorie deficit is pretty restrictive. So.
Right. Well, or the worst thing is that they just say, well, fuck it. I can't do this. I give up.
Yep.
And that's probably a pattern that you've done over and over again. And you don't realize how close you are, like this particular client who trusted the process, to seeing like a really amazing change. And what you believed about yourself, right? So I can't do this. It's not working. I'm going to gain the weight back. You decide to give up. So then it didn't work. Right. I see this often. I talked about this client who wasn't seeing the scale move, but then we did her measurements and they were an inch down. And she goes, well, because the scale didn't move, I decided to just not track.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so we're just making what you believe about yourself true.
Right.
But it's not the scale not moving. That's the issue. It's the choice that you made, it's the giving up that you had that are kind of keeping you in this stuck place. And until you figure that out, obviously I'm trying to help her with it, but until you're able to get past that and say, no matter what, I'm going to follow through, then we're just going to stay in this cycle,
Well, I think that's a good point too, of no matter what, I'm going to follow through till this point that I've predetermined. Because what I'll see, like for us, we as coaches, we set, this is how long it's going to be. At this time, we're going to reverse or do whatever our plan is. But what we'll see is, okay, this person like has been in the weight loss phase. And it's like, well, I haven't hit that goal weight. And so I'm just going to go a little bit longer and a little bit longer, or I'm going to be a little more restrictive for a little bit longer. And so they're keep prolonging this is going to sound insensitive, but you're going to keep prolonging the damage that you're doing. And then we've got to now dig ourselves out of a deeper hole instead of saying, okay, I'm only doing this for 12, 16 weeks. And then after that, whatever happens, happens. Maybe you don't hit like the 16-pound or the 12-pound weight loss if you're looking for a pound per week, but we got to call it good at some point instead of keep going.
Absolutely. Well, I also hear people where they just, the excuse of like, I just need a break. I just need to take a break. Right. I need to they say it's something else. Yeah. I'm over it. It's too much right now.
Yeah.
And this is not this set kind of diet break that we would normally put someone on. It's really just a excuse for them to literally go the opposite of what they were doing. They let go of everything and they go back to the way they ate before. And there's this belief. I had a client tell me once, she goes, well, in my brain, I just thought I'd lose it again. But you don't realize this kind of yo-yo actually affects your body. People think their bodies are stupid. Like they don't have, it's keeping you alive. And there's the things that are happening inside that are doing that. And when you yo-yo diet and add back and go back and forth like that, there are going to be coping mechanisms in your body that are going to change, which ultimately is not going to make it easy for
Mhm.
you to lose that weight again. And so, just that, well, I just can't do it anymore. I needed a break from tracking. Okay, well, a break from tracking doesn't mean you eat like an asshole.
Right.
Those are two different things. Let's just be honest and say, I needed a binge weekend and call it for what the fuck it was, because that's what it is.
Well, and even thinking about it, because you'll see this almost like within the 2 weeks of someone starting, in the initial phases, they'll be like, oh, I just need a break. It's like so much. And it's like, okay, so if you take a break for 1 week, then you've only been in a deficit for 1 week, technically, right? So if I'm in a deficit for 2 weeks, I need a break at the third week. So then I've only been in a deficit for the 1 week. And for really the first week is kind of like figuring your shit out. So you haven't really been giving yourself the opportunity to take a break. And I'd be like, why do we need the break? Because, for example, if you're saying like, I'm just trying to tracking calories, and it's like, well, there are other ways to manage tracking, right? We don't have to just track calories, but then we also have to be more diligent about doing that too. So, but you'll see this increased frustration, like we've talked about, the negative self-talk, the kind of self-sabotage conversations that people start to have of, I can't do this, fuck it, I'm not good enough. Like, obviously I'm not doing it right. So that can exacerbate the outcome, and such that they're, like you're saying, their thoughts and feelings end up becoming true because now they make it true to prove that that thought was correct, which is a nice little circle.
It's a circle, and it's a circle you 1000% have control over. It takes one choice opposite to your reactive choice.
Yes.
That's it. To be like, fuck this. I'm not giving up this time. I give up every other time. I'm not doing it this time.
Right.
Another thing, as you already mentioned, is they don't, like I talked about my client, they don't look at like other means of progress. I personally, I could probably drop like maybe 5 pounds at a time. And then I've got it, and it's over a long period of time, but my measurements will change crazy, like 3 inches. And my body composition will look completely different. Now, I'm different because I don't have as much fat to lose on my body, so it's hard to lose. But even if that you're not in a body like mine, you can still be seeing significant change in your waist, your hips, your body composition. And by taking into consideration those means of progress, and actually, I shouldn't say taking into consideration, by focusing on them, I'd focus on them first, other than the scale, right? Because you don't walk around with your fucking scale weight on your neck.
Like a chain.
Yeah, you're not fucking 2 chains. Like, and like your scale weight and like your goal weight, 2 chains. Yeah, you walk around feeling good in your skin, and your body composition kind of helps with that. So
right. Well, and I think the last thing too is they're always moving the needle on themselves. So we talked about prolonging the weight loss phase. We talked about not setting, like, you can set a goal weight, but not getting your heart set on that weight too. So if they're changing the plan, whether that's exercise and increasing it, changing the diet, whether that's more restrictive of calories, changing the duration, whether that's prolonging it, or changing the expectations too. So that's why I have a very clear conversation with clients when they're entering in a weight loss phase. What are our expectations? And let's be honest about them. And also, what's our red flag that this is going south? Because I need you guys to recognize it. And it's actually really interesting because I do my typical red flags of like sleep goes to shit, strength goes to shit, And one of my clients said, if I get too restrictive where I don't want to go out anymore with friends. I was like, oh, that's a good point. Like that's, if we're starting to change plans socially where I'm not going out or bringing my Tupperware to stuff, then that's something that probably needs to be addressed more so. That's not the plateau. Like doing that's not going to change the plateau problem. There's something else going on there.
You just made me think of something. I have a client who worked with a different coaching program prior to us that I used to work for. And she texted me the other day because we're really working on a plan that fits her life. And she has a difficult job. She is working long hours. And she said, she goes, I, because of past coaching, am traumatized when I don't see progress, because they would kind of gaslight me into like, well,
What's your problem?
it was like, it was not a what's your problem. It was a passive aggressive way to say, what's your problem?
Yeah.
In this motivational interviewing type of, what they called motivational interviewing, which is a type of like therapy response. But she goes, it was shaming.
Yeah.
And trauma is anything less than nurturing and anything that was shaming. And I'm sure a lot of you listening have felt shame from your people you've hired.
Yes.
Because of Plateaus. And I want you to hear again, this is normal. Good coaches expect it. They have a plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I talked about with my client, she trusted me. We did it. And she is fucking cruising. And then when she stops cruising, which she will, we already have the next diet break ready for her.
Right.
Boom. She's going to go on diet break for the holidays. So
that's so frustrating because I'm thinking of a gal recently from the group cohort that had a lot of shame from coaching, from her experiences. I know. So when I was first working with her, it was a difficult conversations to manage because she was kind of always on the defensive, right? Which I get, but then it took her to realize, like, I don't really care that you binged. Like, I mean, I care, right? But like, I'm not going to shame you for it. I'm more concerned of like what happened, and we should probably work through that, as opposed to in the past when she would hide it, and I feel for that client that you're talking about, because it's really unfortunate because it gives coaching a bad rap. But
yeah,
that's another topic for another day.
Yeah. So in regards to like research on this, what are some insights you can share?
Yeah. So I found this article. I think you found this article. One of us found this article that was talking about a weight loss, management of a weight loss plateau. And it came out in 2022. So the highlights are, similar degrees of weight loss can be achieved between 8 and 12 weeks. So I want to emphasize that, of 8 to 12 weeks for a fat loss phase, where you'll see people, and some of you listening, this is you, who have mentally been in a fat loss phase for years, right? So 8 to 12 weeks is what we're looking for. At 24 weeks and over, only about 10 to 20% of those people actually maintain their weight loss. So why are we going into a half a year of weight loss when 10 to 20% of you, that's honestly a minority of you, are actually going to maintain it? And so more likely than not, you're not going to maintain it. So the process, like, as you said, it's not linear. It comes and goes, it ups and downs. But they also talked about, this was actually a really good article, is which diet is the best. And it was honestly like going back to, I think Lane Norton talks about, it's like, it's not about the diet, it's the deficit. Like,
it's calorie deficit.
Yeah, it's a calorie deficit. It's energy and
the law of thermodynamics. Yeah. It's like the law of gravity.
Yes. So they wanted to look for a 0.7% of weight loss per week average. And then they really recognize, like, we need to be aware of increased hunger cues. We need to be aware of the fatigue, weight regain, sabotage behaviors. Ding, ding, ding. Because of discouragement. Yes.
Did we do this? Did we do this research?
Like Cassillo and Hathaway.
Yeah.
So they also talked about, again, a need for a recovery phase. So when we talk about recovery phase, like you said, this client could be going in a diet break for the holidays. It could be, so for example, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas are coming up. So if you're in a weight loss phase, you could say week of Halloween, week of Thanksgiving, week of Christmas, I'm in a diet break. Easy. Yes, very easy. Or you could say, okay, in 12 weeks, I'm going to do a straight fat loss phase. And then for 3 months, I'm going to do a straight maintenance phase. Like, it needs to be that planned out, people. So they're talking about that. And then plateaus can last from weeks to months. Yep. So we need to be aware of that too. Weeks to months.
Right. Especially if we're not doing anything to offset it. So good. So what do we do when there's a plateau?
Okay.
So first things first is, instead of that constant calorie deficit, we can cycle between maintenance and deficit. Now you can do this a couple of ways. We have clients who have low calorie days and high calorie days, which is helpful for them. We also have clients that will, like you just talked about, go through the phase for 12 weeks, and then they'll take a 1 to 2 week break where they're eating at maintenance. This allows your body to kind of if you will, keep guessing and avoid that metabolic slowdown. And it really can help with the mental part of it too, of just like, okay, I think that, you know, when you say, okay, you're going to be in a calorie deficit for 4 to 6 weeks. So say it's 6 weeks and then 1 week break. You can do anything for 6 weeks.
Correct.
You know, and be like, okay, and then I get my break and I get to reset, right? Or I know during the week, I don't need as many calories just because I'm very structured and I'm busy. And let's just face it, when you're structured and busy, you can not be as hungry. And not that you shouldn't be eating, you should still be feeding yourself. And then when I'm like, oh, maybe you get home and you're stressed out, I'm like, oh, now I want to do all the things, I want to binge or whatever. You'd be like, I have my high calorie day, I'm going to plan it out. And that will allow me to enjoy myself a bit more. And of course, as we talked about, you know, in this phase of adjusting your nutrition, kind of assess the duration, right? So if you've been in a deficit for 14 weeks, we can then say, okay, do we actually need a diet break or do we just need to reverse diet out of this and chill at maintenance for a while? So really assessing the plateau of like, it's been long enough for you.
Yeah. And so one thing I want to say with this, so the adjusting the nutrition, because you had talked about 12 weeks and then 2 weeks break or whatever it was, is this doesn't mean you're doing this for the whole fucking year either. Like this means I'm doing it from what are we in October to December, and that's it. Right. And then because you need to be in a maintenance phase or at least a surplus phase too in part of the year. We don't always need to be in a deficit. And for those of you who are thinking like, oh, I'll just do a deficit for 14 weeks, come out of it, and that'll kind of be my roller coaster of the year, you're going to end up putting yourself where your calories are ending up less. So this goes back to, I forget what episode that was, of considering that, go ahead.
What was it?
Do you know what I'm going to talk about? Of considering that your calories are dropping
why you keep gaining, how to not gain the weight back.
How to not gain the weight back. Yes. So listen to that one, because so if I'm going in this deficit for 14 weeks, off for 2 weeks, my calories for maintenance are actually lower. So I need to be aware of that. Then I go back into 14 weeks. Calories need to be lower to elicit fat loss. Then I go back to maintenance. Calories are lower for maintenance now. So you're perpetually inadvertently lowering your calories that you've worked really, really hard to get to like a good level that seems like sustainable where you don't feel food restriction.
Right. No, and this is another reason why we say every episode, this is why you should work with a coach, because at least at minimum to learn this process and like in its entirety. So the deficit, the diet breaks, how do we get out of the deficit? What does a reverse diet look like? What does maintenance look like? What does a surplus look like? Because then you've learned every single step. And then also realizing that just because your calories were this way this time does not mean they're going to be this way next time. And being able to educate yourself around that as well. So that's why even just getting that information and you obviously are paying for it, but it's going to set you up for less defeat and failure down the line. Right. So again, for increasing like metabolism, this increase in nutrition and calorie intake is going to be helpful as well. And then focusing on strength training, of course, will help to boost that metabolism, right? Talk about what you've seen in regards to like any sort of weight increase during this time.
Yeah. So we need to be prepared. So like, let's take your client, for example, what typically would happen if they increase their calories for a break is you're probably going to see that scale go up a bit. And it's not necessarily because you gained fat. It's again, because carbs have water in them. So you're going to retain a little bit more water. So it's not that you failed, right? And so we need to go into that knowing it. It's just temporary. But it's also one of the things of, do you feel stronger that week? Are you sleeping better that week? Like maybe those are signs that, to me, that's more positive than the maybe 1 to 2 pounds that you gained on the scale from adding in a bit more calories, right? So we need to be aware of that. It can help in the long run just by making sure that our calories that our body likes to use aren't dropping too low either, right? Of just kind of being like, oh, remember we like to eat. And your body goes, oh, thank you.
That my client, another part of that was she recognized that she could eat more and her fear around eating more was debunked in her diet break, because what she realized is, because she's working with us, that she did it the right way. And what she was doing before was not staying at maintenance, eating in a surplus. And that's why she gained it back. And it was just so nice for her to like debunk that anytime I increase my calories, I'm going to gain weight. No, when you eat like an a-hole, that's when we're going to gain weight.
Right.
Yeah. So good. In regards to that, so just like piggyback off of like the psychological, like how this is helpful psychologically, mentally, just being able to, number one, like have a little bit more room in your diet. That's nice, right? By eating more food, that's really nice. But also recognizing and accepting that this is part of the process, right? That the process is not linear, right? You're going to have occasional stalls, and that is just how it is. And expecting that, and not in a scary way, like, oh, am I plateauing, but just knowing it's going to happen, and that it's a pattern over time. And if you have a good coach, they'll be able to say, okay, this is where we're at. We already expected it. This is our plan, right? But also, during this time, it can help kind of redefine what progress means to you. You can continue to focus on, this is a long-term goal versus a short-term goal. Especially, again, we are going to create a timeline and a plan for you. You'll know this is part of the process.
Yeah.
Also, what we're not doing is that all or nothing thinking. If we're already planning for this to happen, then we have that expectation. We know that it's not something that has to do with us failing or, our inability to lose weight. It's simply my body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do because it's trying to fucking keep me alive.
Well, and that's when we, like I said before, is we need to talk about when the cut is going south too. So it's not like after 1 week of plateau, I'm not going to take a client out of a cut for 1 week, because 1 week is not enough data. But if I've got signs of, she's been telling me that her sleep has been getting poor, or like having trouble staying asleep or having trouble falling asleep. She's been telling me that she's been feeling very fatigued, maybe really lack of working out motivation. Maybe her strength is kind of going like kaputs, and I can see it in the logs. Maybe our calories are we're not hitting protein targets. So we're getting fatigued in the dieting part of this. And so when I see that, if it's coming and then I've got the plateau at the 1 week, I'm going to start having that conversation to prepare them, because it's not just like I cut my calories, check, nutrition box. I have an exercise plan, check. It's psychologically, what are our expectations? How do we know when it's going south? And we need to prepare for that conversation of, you're not a failure. It's not that it's not working. It's just that, again, your body's kind of going into this conservation mode, which is wonderful because it should. But we also need to say, maybe it's time that we just either take a break or pull out. And then usually you also want to evaluate the progress that you have made at that time too. Because most likely there was some success going on. There probably was some scale weight dropped, or maybe inches changed. It doesn't have to be just, I didn't get the 20 pounds that I was looking for. It could be, oh, wow, I actually did this. Like, even say no measurements were changed, but they stay consistent. No scale weight was dropped, but you learned like maybe 1,500 calories is too low of a deficit. Like that is a measure of progress too. Because now it says, okay, what do we need to do to get that number up? Or what kind of expectation do we have for a different cut number? So it's always looking at the back end of it too.
Well, and you brought up a term, this nutrition fatigue, where women, I'm thinking of a client specifically, will just try to stay in this deficit when their behaviors don't
match.
Show us they don't match. And, for this particular client, I'd be like, why are you doing this? What is the why?
Yeah.
What is the reason why? Coming back to your why during a plateau is really important too. Obviously, we're going to do the things like the diet breaks and adjusting calories and strength training, which we'll talk about here in a second. What is the reason you're still doing this? Why? Are you just doing it because you think that's what you need to do? Or is there something important here? Because if you're just kind of cruising along in like the subconscious of, this is just what I need to do, we're just going to be spinning our wheels.
Right.
You're going to have that nutrition fatigue. You're not going to want to be motivated. We talked about the anti-reward system of the brain. If we're making this something that continues to be stressful, our brain will literally be like, nope, we're not doing that anymore, and cause you to have less motivation and discipline towards this.
Right.
But if the motivation is, wow, like exactly what you're saying, look at me, like I'm, seeing progress in my eating habits. I'm seeing progress in just redefining what a deficit looks like to me. I'm seeing progress in my shape. Then guess what? That reduces the stress, which reduces the likelihood you're going into that anti-reward system, will stay in the reward system to continue with the discipline and motivation. So your why is very important here as well.
Okay. Well, and knowing too, I'm glad you brought that up, because that made me remember of your why is important, because I can guarantee you, if you haven't worked on the why in this confident building phase, that when you do reach that goal weight, you're not going to feel any different about yourself, because you're going to still want more. Right. Absolutely. So let's say a client who wants to get down to 155, we'll say, and maybe they weigh 165 right now. So 10-pound difference, right? Which is very reasonable to lose in a 12-week period, if we're doing it with a 500 calorie deficit. Say we get to 157. So we're 2 pounds short. Are you going to say that's a failure? Or are you going to say, oh, damn, I'm within 2, but look at all this other shit that I accomplished while doing it. I didn't binge. I already didn't do this restrictive diet practice. I actually ate what I enjoyed. I was able to have like the cheesecake and go out to dinner with my husband and still lose the 8 pounds. Right. Or do we go, I'm a failure because of those 2? This is where we have to say, what is progress? What are our realistic expectations? But what of the psychological strategies that we were talking about do we have within ourselves? Because I can promise you, even if you get to 155, like this is what we'll see a lot too, is, well, could I just get a little bit more then? Right. And it's like, they just want a little bit more. Like, what would 153 feel like? And it's like, at some point, man, you weigh what you weigh, and that's okay. Yeah. But how do you feel about yourself?
Right. Exactly. It's like, you wouldn't, if your kid came home with an 80% on a test, you're going to fucking, throw them to the wolves? No. Yeah. You're going to be like, great job. What did you learn? What are some things we can work on? You're not going, if you're doing that, then we should have a conversation, because you're going to fuck your kid up, which only keeps our business busy. But you absolutely have to understand, like, what is the number on a machine that, if off calibration, can make it higher or lower, even if it's not true, right? If it's not, if you recalibrate it and it's all fucked up and it's not true, what are you making up about yourself because of that? Right. That is the thing we need to focus on. So last thing though, just to finish this off in regards to adjustments we make is making changes to your workout. Now, people think you've got to do just something different every day to keep your body guessing. Nope. When I plateau, what I end up doing is the workout I don't want to fucking do, which is normally like some sort of conditioning workout where I'm working. Yeah, I know. For me, I am technically saying what we said earlier not to do. I do change the intensity, but that's because I stay in kind of my comfort zone of low reps, high weights, 4 to 5 workouts, 4 to 5 sets of each, and just get in and get out. Whereas doing more functional training is something that I don't love, but I know that it's a novelty for me. It's something that creates new stimulus in my body, which ultimately is going to get my body kind of going in a different way, rather than just staying comfortable in my strength train phase.
Well, and I want to make the point too. So say we'll take Christina, for example. Thank you. She changes her workout this is the first week that she changed her workout when she's been in this plateau of the weight loss. She's not going to expect a radical change by next week. No. And she's going to, we just got to say it. So, and she's going to do that program consistently for another 3, 4, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, even depending on how long this cut is. So she's not going to do it once and then be bummed that the scale didn't change. And she's not going to only do it for a week and then be bummed. So the point is if you're always doing high reps, so we'll do on the contrary, high reps, low weight, let's try some heavy reps, or heavy weight, low reps, and just see if that helps. Now, you're not going to go, like, For example, if you're going to go high weight, low reps, it's probably not going to be at the same strength of weight that you could use in a maintenance or a surplus. So be aware of that. That's not necessarily to discourage you from doing it, but it's more so of, hey, just remember, there's not as much energy to get that thing moving, but that's okay.
Right. Absolutely. No. And just again, make sure you have a plan for if we are in a deficit, what does our training look like? Also then, okay, where are our diet breaks? Where will our training change? Right. And they should change around that diet break and or just become a deload week too. You could do both. You could deload and diet break. Oh shit.
Actually, recommend that you do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like a vacay, but within bounds. We still have boundaries there, right?
Yes.
And again, just have a plan for this and expect it. You want to expect it. And when you expect something to happen and then it happens, you're like, cool, already expected this to happen. Now we cruise through. Oh, and guess what? I get to eat more now.
Yep.
Don't use it as an excuse to eat more. So good. Awesome. Well, if you are someone who is traumatized from past coaches and plateaus make you feel like a complete piece of shit, and or you would just like to work with people who understand you and create realistic expectations in regards to fat loss, maintenance, body composition, and just feeling healthier, check out our Clarity Call link in the show notes below to set up a one-to-one call with one of us to talk about our amazing programs and how we can support you. If you'd like to support this podcast, please share it with five other people. We are working on a new logo, which is going to turn into t-shirts. And then we are going to be giving away some t-shirts. So you can do a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify for us. Because again, we need the ratings. We need the reviews. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Mindset of Matter Coaching and Amanda at fitbyamanda.az. And that's it, I think. Yeah. I need to just create an outro for this. Yes. I don't need to say this every time. No. But again, in regards to plateaus, you also need to remember this one last thing.
What you say in the mind.
You see in the mirror. Weird. Bye.
Bye.